From 32 to 16, now down to just 8. It is time to give our quarterfinal predictions for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. Guys, Manny G back here with you on Football with Flags. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button as well if you haven't already done so. But before we get to these picks, let's go back and take a look and see how our predictions did in the round of 16. Not too bad of a run here in the round of 16. We go 7-1. The only one that we missed was the Colombia-Jamaica game. We did have the Reggae girls advancing, but excited to see what Colombia can do moving forward. We are doing things a little bit different in today's video. We are going to give a preview of each individual matchup, but then we're going to show you how we think each team is going to line up tactically and formation-wise against one another and see what are things possibly to look out for each side as they prepare to battle, and then that's where we'll give our predictions. So without wasting any more time, guys, let's get to these picks and see who we've got going to the semis. First matchup in these quarterfinals, we've got Spain taking on Netherlands, and I'll be honest, guys, I think this is the toughest game to predict. I just think both of these sides are very evenly matched. They've got incredible talent and have looked really good at different points in this competition thus far. So to see one of them have to go home, in my opinion, early is very disappointing, but it's going to be a great contest. Keep in mind that this is just the third appearance in the World Cup for both of these sides. They both made their debut in 2015. This is the first ever quarterfinal for Spain. As for the Netherlands, remember, they made it to the final and lost to the U.S. in 2019. So the fact that we've got both of these sides as talented and as good as they are at this point facing one another, it's going to be a spectacle and definitely a game to watch if you get the opportunity to do so. But we'll get started off with Spain, who outshot the Swiss 26-2 in that round of 16 matchup. They outpossessed them 70-30%, which again isn't always an important statistic, but when you put 5 goals behind your opponent, I think it's at least something worth mentioning. Bonmati, Redondo, Ginny Hermoso were all very important, and it's great to see a number of different players for them scoring goals, looking composed, some silky finishes as well. As for the Netherlands, they'll be without Danielle van de Donk, who, due to a yellow card suspension, won't be available in the midfield for the Dutch. Certainly disappointing to not have her because she's a phenomenal player for them. Netherlands also outpossessed South Africa around 70-30%. However, again, that game was much tighter, and certainly thought South Africa could have put a goal or two behind them considering their pace and the opportunities that they had, but unfortunately they weren't able to do so. And Jill Ward getting on the score sheet early for the Dutch was certainly important as well. That was her 4th goal of the competition, and she is right in the race for the Golden Boot as well. So again, this is going to be a phenomenal game. And as you can see down there at the bottom, last time these two met, Spain wound up winning 1-0 in a friendly. Granted, it is a friendly, but keep in mind in that game, Spain actually outshot Netherlands 20-1 in that contest. So just a little note to keep in mind when these two go to battle. But let's take a look at their formations and see how they might line up. All right, guys, this is how we think Spain and the Dutch are going to line up. Spain going with a 4-3-3, the Netherlands with a 3-5-2. And a couple key points to keep in mind for this game. One is possession. Both of these teams have had a good majority of the ball thus far through the games that they've already played. So to see that balance out between these two will be very interesting. I honestly think Spain will have more of the ball, but we'll have to wait and see. 2 is movement off the ball. Both of these sides like to utilize their midfield to get forward, to give support, to create dangerous opportunities in the attack, and both of their midfields score a lot of goals for them. So to see how well they're able to move off the ball, find space, be dangerous in the final third is going to be very important. And 3 is transition opportunities. Like we just talked, both of the midfields like to get higher up the field, get involved in the attack. That's going to be important, whether it's through turnovers, 50-50s, etc., how well teams can transition off of that with the midfields from both sides getting higher up the pitch. For the Netherlands, I think that midfield 5 is going to be very important, especially trying to apply pressure if Spain does have the good majority of possession. I just think that they can overload the middle of the park, can really take advantage of opportunities to try and create turnovers from Spain and utilize transition and counterattacks when possible. But with that being said, at the same time, if they do apply pressure, will Spain be more direct? Considering, they do like possession a lot of the times, will they look to still try and dissect the Dutch, through tiki-taka, through moving the ball quickly, or will they look to be more direct and exploit space out wide and get to that back 3 sooner? I think it'll be important to see Netherlands look to counter, again, with those midfielders off turnovers as much as possible, considering how good Jill Ward and some others can be. But at the same time, it'll be interesting to see how much Lika Martens uh, you know, migrates to the midfield, helps support them in terms of their own possession and looking to go forward as well. But at the same time, we've seen Spain, while they do like possession of the ball, they've had success with it in this tournament, but they've also failed as well. They have to have possession with a purpose. We saw they had a good majority of the ball against Japan, but then get, blown out 4-0. So a lot on the table between these two teams. I'm very fascinated and intrigued to see how these two formations could line up against one another if we see both of them come out this way. But right now, guys, I think this game could go into extra time. I think we could see penalties. And as much as, again, I feel like I could go back and forth with this prediction, right now, I'm going to go with Spain advancing to the semifinals. Second quarterfinal matchup sees Japan taking on Sweden. And keep in mind, Japan are the only remaining former champion left in the field. So if they are unable to go all the way, we will have our 5th ever World Cup winner in the women's game. But we'll get things started off with Japan, who have pretty much been in cruise control this entire contest thus far, a plus 11 goal differential during the group stage. Norway were just the first team to finally score on them there in the round of 16. The amazing part about Japan is just their ability to keep the ball on frame. They take care of their chances. They look so good in the final third, and they've been able to score on a multitude of ways. They've had some very simple finishes, but then they've also had some very eloquent and breathtaking goals as well. So this team, again, just doing so well in the final third, taking care of their opportunities and scoring a number of goals as well, just to show. Miyazawa is the leader in the Golden Boot race right now for Japan as well, with 5 goals. And this is the 4th time they've ever made it to the quarterfinals. Remember, they won it back in 2011 and then were beaten by the U.S. in 2015. So certainly looking to get back to the finals here in 2013 with their 3rd ever shot at a World Cup title. As for Sweden, literally making it here by a millimeter, if that. I mean, just so close with that ball on the line as it crosses in the penalty shootout to make sure that Sweden advances. And what a fantastic, dramatic penalty shootout that was. Musovic had 11 saves in that game against the U.S. Really wasn't tested very much during the shootout, considering that the U.S. missed 2 completely off the frame, and then Kelly O'Hara hits the post, and she wasn't able to save any of the others. But again, she was phenomenal in the first 90 minutes as well as extra time to get to that point. U.S. controlled a good portion of that game, but Sweden were very solid defensively and looked threatening at times. Rolfo only had 1 shot during that game, but Blackstenius had 3 herself. And again, they had a few decent chances, but this Swedish side did make it through in dramatic fashion to get to the round of 8. And it will be interesting to see how this team goes, considering this is the 7th time that they've made it to the quarterfinals. Again, never previously won this competition. They've finished 3rd place 3 separate times, and certainly Sweden feeling like they got over a huge hump beating the United States. But here we are once again, them facing another former champion, and this Japanese side is very, very good and going to be tough to get by as well. But Sweden looked pretty comfortable there in the group stage. And again, a great defensive work rate there against the U.S. to stay 0-0 and then get to extra time and penalties. They finally get the job done. Last meeting these two were in the Olympics a couple years ago. Sweden wound up winning that game 3-1, which is a very interesting result as these two move forward. But let's see how they might potentially line up. Well, guys, Japan started off with a 3-4-2-1 to begin this competition, but they have transitioned into a 3-4-3 the last couple games. We think they'll stick with that moving forward. As for Sweden, pretty comfortable in this 4-2-3-1. We think they'll continue with that as well. A couple of key points for this game, certainly going to be possession. I think Japan will have a good majority of the possession. The midfield is going to be a very important area of this game as well. I think that a big question for this game is how clinical can Japan be? Can they continue to find the net on a number of different occasions with their shots and look to be threatening in that regard? And how many numbers will they pile forward when they get involved in the attack? Obviously, you see 4 there in the midfield. They have been all instrumental in terms of creating key opportunities in the final third for Japan. So they're certainly going to get forward. The question is, how forward will they get and how often will they stay there? The midfield, again, is going to be important, especially for 50-50 battles. Obviously, I think Sweden have an advantage there with their height. And again, Sweden, with their ability to create opportunities off of corners and set pieces, is going to be pivotal. So between, those midfield battles, being physical, winning the ball back, keeping possession, but also just being threatening through free kicks and corners. I think that's how Sweden is going to have to get after Japan in the best way possible. But that midfield battle is going to be very, very important, as well as the use of just width. I think both sides have a good opportunity when they are in possession to use a lot of width, create some overloads out on the wings as much as possible, and use not only that width, but the half spaces as well to try and exploit teams. I think when Sweden are in a defensive shape, they'll have a good block there in front of their two um, center backs, but that half space I think will become open at times on both sides for Japan to possibly exploit. And we'll see if Sweden are able to get their outside backs forward and get involved with their midfielders and wingers as well to hopefully swing in some crosses and be dangerous in those areas also. But right now, guys, I do have Japan moving forward. I think Sweden have had a fantastic battle. I think Musovic is going to have a fantastic game again, this time against the Japanese. But I do still believe that Japan will be just too clinical for the Swedes and get through in this game to advance to another semifinal. Third quarterfinal matchup, we've got Australia taking on France, and we'll get started with the Matildas, who are making their fourth quarterfinal appearance. They've never gotten past this point, though, which I think is a key note to mention. But this team has been unselfish. They've had Rasso, Fowler, Catley, Ford all getting on the score sheet several times in this competition. And with Sam Kerr's absence, I think that's been huge for their confidence in terms of their ability to, stay in games, continue to score, continue to be a threat going forward. This team's been great in transition, and I'm going to use that word several times when we talk about this group tactically. It'll be interesting to see if Sam Kerr finally starts against the French or not, or if she comes back off the bench. But the fact that this team have understood their assignment and stepped up to the task in terms of their responsibility with Sam Kerr's absence has been huge, and it's been awesome to watch this unfold for this co-host side as they make another run here at a quarterfinal with an opportunity to go to their first ever semifinal. As for France, started off a bit slow, but they've finally gotten into it. They've scored 10 goals in their last 2 games, certainly looking much better defensively after they let in 3 against Panama in terms of this game against Morocco that they just had. Le Sommer and Diani each getting on the score sheet once again. Diani's now got 4 to her tally. I think Le Sommer has 3 with her 2 goals against Morocco. And for France, they've had 4 quarterfinal appearances now as well, but they've gotten beaten in the quarterfinals the last 2 times out. And keep in mind, remember 2019, France were the hosts when they met the U.S. in the quarterfinals and got beat. So again, even though it's not the U.S., this is maybe their time to turn the tables and take a host out themselves. So we'll have to wait and see with this contest. Certainly a lot of great talent on the field on both sides. And again, last time these two played were back in July in 2023 before this tournament started. Australia wound up winning that game 1-0. So keep that in mind, even though France actually wound up outshooting them 15-4. As for Australia and France, it looks like this. We think the Matildas will start in that 4-4-2, a pretty traditional formation, and what they've lined up with a lot in this competition thus far. As for France, they've moved things around a little bit. The last couple games have settled with a 4-4-1-1. And again, we talked about transition in the last slide. It's going to be pivotal for Australia in this game. I do think France will possess them. I'm not 100% sure that they're going to have more opportunities than Australia in this game. I just think that if Australia can be smart in terms of creating turnovers, winning 50-50 battles, and really looking to use the wide spaces as much as possible, or at least gaps in between their outside backs and center backs, the way they did against Denmark, I think that's going to be very important for their success in terms of transition and counterattacks for Australia. They have the pace to do it. We'll have to wait and see if they're capable of doing it or not, though, against this French side, who look pretty defensively. But again, with Diani and maybe Le Sommer sitting up there up top, they're going to want to play balls through the two of them, look to get their midfield involved in the attack more. And again, Diani was doing a phenomenal job getting into wide spaces and getting balls played through to her and allowing people to come on forward, on the back side as well. So again, they can attack in a number of different ways. But I really think that it's going to be important for France to be smart in possession, use their outside backs well, and not give the ball away in any key areas, because if they do, I think Australia is going to have a great shot at countering them. And especially, again, while Wendy Renard is a fantastic defender, with the pace that Australia has, I think it would be smart for them to try and exploit and go after her again when we talk about that space between her and her outside back, if they're able to do so. But again, I think this is going to be a fascinating matchup. I certainly hope we see a number of goals. I hope this game doesn't go 0-0, through the 90 minutes, or just 1-0 into extra time, or whatever it is. I hope we see 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 goals in this game, because again, there's a lot of great talent on this field, and certainly worth seeing a number of different goals, especially if Sam Kerr is able to play a good majority of this game also. But with that being said, guys, right now I do have France going through. It's very, very tough to call. I did have France in our initial predictions going through to the semis as well, so I'm going to stick with that. But again, if it does go Australia's way, what a phenomenal result that would be for them also. But again, both of these sides certainly hungry, knowing they've got an opportunity to go to a World Cup semifinal and be just one step closer to making history. England versus Colombia in our last matchup in these quarterfinals. We'll start off with the Lionesses, who just barely scraped by with a 4-2 win in penalties over Nigeria. The Super Falcons did outshoot England 20-12 in that game, including one that hit off the crossbar. And then, of course, the loss of Lauren James due to a red card is disappointing to not have her in this upcoming contest as well. But Mary Earps has been great so far in this tournament, certainly in that Golden Glove conversation. And then for England and Chloe Kelly to come in clutch during that penalty shootout as subs, coming on late and help secure that spot in this quarterfinals is great. Even though, ironically, Georgia Stanway winds up missing hers. She was the first penalty taker. And remember, she did score off a penalty against Haiti in that first group stage matchup to secure the win there. But England, in their 5th ever quarterfinal appearance, certainly looking to get to a semifinal once again. And a lot of people have them pegged as the overall favorites now to win the whole thing, now that the U.S. are out, just in terms of the potential pathway they have to get to the final and win it all. We'll have to wait and see if that comes true, though. As for Colombia, really good start there against South Korea, then another historic win against Germany. The first ever win that they had in the World Cup was in 2015 against France. That was the same group with England, as you can see there. The last time these two played each other was 2015. That was when they had that first result against France. And to come back 8 years later with a huge win against number 2 overall Germany, 2-1, is certainly historic and great for that federation. A bit disappointing to not turn around and do anything against Morocco, not collect any points from that, but they were in a safe enough position to still get through after those first 2 games with 6 points, and then get the job done in the 51st minute with the goal today against Jamaica to secure a spot in their first ever quarterfinal. Again, keep in mind Linda Caicedo, the youngster for this side. She's been so dangerous, along with a number of other players for this team as well. Not a lot of goals in many of the games for Colombia, but that means that they're keeping things tight. It's fairly balanced, but it means that, again, chances and chances created in the final third are all the more important when Colombia are playing. So let's take a look at how these two teams might set up tactically. So here we have how we feel England and Colombia will line up. England going with a 3-5-2, meanwhile Colombia sitting more in a 4-2-3-1. And again, this 3-5-2 looks similar to what the Dutch are playing, but you've got that midfielder rather sitting in front of that back 3, more of an attacking role in front of those 4 in the midfield, which is where Lauren James is usually playing. But considering her absence, it'll be interesting to see who they put in place for that as well. Not only is that important, but considering how Colombia lines up, you kind of see that V shape in the middle of the park there in front of their 18. That's usually a spot where she's really good at exploiting teams. So whoever is able to take that position for her, being able to exploit Colombia in that area is going to be very important, especially around those 2 defensive center mids, whether they're able to keep a good block and a good defensive shape there in front of their 18-yard box, but also how well will they be able to push forward and help those front 4 in the attack, along with their 2 outside backs as well. We definitely think England's going to have a good majority of the possession in this game, and it's really just going to come down to, can England convert their opportunities, or can Colombia counter and really be physical the way they have with other teams so far in this competition, winning 50-50 battles, being strong with corners and set pieces also. I think this is going to be a really good game, back and forth. Again, very physical, But we'll see if England are able to take care of their chances in terms of possession and exploiting Colombia in the wide spaces also. But right now, guys, I do think England's going to get through. I think, again, Colombia is going to give them a great battle. It's certainly going to be closer maybe than some people expect it to be. But right now, I do have England going through to the semis. Well, there you have it, guys. That's how our semifinals shape up. We've got Spain, Japan, France, and England all going through. Some really, really great matchups in these quarterfinals. Make sure you stay tuned for all of these games and watch as much of this action as you can. But right now, those are the four that we've got advancing to the semifinals of this 2023 World Cup. Well, guys, that'll wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching. As always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and please let us know down in the comments your predictions as well for these quarterfinal matchups, as well as who else you think might go all the way in this competition. Guys, have a blessed day, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Peace.